So I'm just going to know that God deals us a full deck.
Yeah.
That's what I know to be true. So good morning. Okay, this morning I'm going to speak upon courage to create your own conditions. And the first thing that Ernest says is we should be able to look at wrong conditions with the knowledge that it can change. We can. We can change our conditions of our life. But the big question for all of you is, do you want to? Conditions are up there with that little word called change and shift. Do we really want to change and shift our lives? If we do, well then get ready for transformation and all kinds of wonderful things happening. However, if you decide that you don't want to do that, well, that's what I'm going to talk to you about this morning. See if we can get you off that conditional rock. So usually conditions are met, as I said, with change. And change, of course, has a lot to do with our human condition called feelings. And feelings dictate a lot of our lives because they are emotional. We act from our hearts. We act sometimes a lot from our minds and reason. We think, okay, well, this is what's going to be so, and that's so it is. Really? Does that condition have to be that way? Well, in my mind, yes, it does. God's mind says no. It doesn't have to be that way. You have a choice. You have a choice to do what you want, but yet you're choosing this condition. Why? Because you can. So what happens is you decide that, all right, this is the condition that I set up. This is what I have to abide by. God again says, no, guess again. You get another chance. So as our affirmation this morning, our thought for the day said, about being successful in life. It's all about how we turn our thoughts inward. It is all about our mental desire of what we want to become. Those conditions we can look at as a mental equivalent. Our conditions, we can say, okay, this is what I see in my life moving forward. This is what I picture. This is exactly what I see. That's what a mental equivalent is that we are knowing that as we picture whatever that desire is, that's the way it's going to be. Now, of course, you can go the other way. Instead of being positive, you can picture a negative desire, like I talked about last week. What we think we become, and sometimes we do say, well, that Eeyore syndrome kind of creeps in and says, no, I can't do this. This is not going to happen this way. I'm not, that kind of stuff. It's just not going to happen. But yet, I'm telling you, God's telling you that it can happen. So get out of your way. Get out of your way. Get out of your way to fulfill what God wants you to have, which is a wonderful and grateful life. So what happens when we have feelings is sometimes, well, I shouldn't say sometimes, all the time, it drives our day. It's like the weather. We look outside or we check our phones or whatever device you have and you say, oh, it's going to rain today. So the condition is, all right, it's going to rain, you're going to prepare for that. But then maybe you're driving down the road and there's a rainbow and the sun is shining. Oh, wait a minute, the conditions just changed. I don't have to deal with rain today. Well, that's your life. You set out the day and you said, okay, I got this horrible phone call, or you got something in the mail and you're saying, okay, this is the way it's going to be. No. You can turn it around and say, you know what? All right, yeah, that wasn't exactly what I was planning today, but how can I look at that and turn it around to where it is a positive for me? What am I going to learn from this experience? What is it telling me to be more conscious of? Because sometimes we do forget to be conscious. A lot of things in our conditions are inherent from ancestors. Because our ancestors thought this way, this is the way we have to say. or we have to look at things. We also look at race conditions, and I don't mean the color of our skin. What I mean is the human race conditions. What is the conversation that's happening that we feel that we are conditioned to, that we have to react to? What would it be like if you said, no, I don't have to react that way, I can react a different way? Oh, that's a thought. I mean, I don't have to follow the line. I don't have to follow what's going on. No, you could be a rebel with a cause like me. And you could say, no, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't support me. Those conditions are something that I don't really want to have in my life. So I choose to step away from it. You know, we tend to create the conditions in our life. That's a big news flash, I know, for everybody. But as I said, when we create these conditions and things don't happen the way they're supposed to, all hell breaks loose. And what I mean is, in our minds, we can go there if we want to, where we become victims, where we start saying we lack this, or this doesn't support us, or this isn't good enough. Really? Why? First of all, nothing and no one is against you. That's just it, period. You can be in your little pity party all you want to, blow up balloons, throw confetti, but it doesn't have to be that way. You do not have to live in a blocked energy. You can live in an energy that flows through you, with you, as you. And that's God's energy, which right here, right now, you all have. You can't get away from it. It is part of you. It will always be a part of you. And so there. So if you try to run from it, it's not going to happen. Because it's saying, you know, I realize conditions in your life aren't exactly wonderful. So how do we change that? And what I mean by we is God is saying, okay, let us do this together. I'm going to show you how we can do this. And of course, in our minds, our conditions are, well, the material world. Well, I have to have this, I have to have that in order for these conditions to change. No, change your thinking, change your mind. It's that easy. Change your thinking, change your mind. So when we come from a thinking of this is so much, this our highest good, and this is so much better, things will start to change, as I've said, over and over and over. Change. Conditions can change. You know, conditions are conditional. If you think about it, aren't they? Yes. I mean, we create conditions and makes it conditional, and then we operate from that. It's craziness. So what happens is when we create negative experiences, they're usually from our past. So those conditions, what happens is we carry everything with us. And of course, those conditions have to be the same conditions that just happened maybe, 10, 15, 5, or even 2 years ago. So we're still operating in that negative thought. What would it look like if all of a sudden you said, you know what? I don't need these negative thoughts anymore. Yeah, that was a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever it was. But I don't require that thought pattern anymore. Because that doesn't exist right here, right now in this situation. This is a different situation. The conditions are not the same. So why am I trying to make the conditions the same? That weren't, and they're not. Charles Fillmore says, the sense of mind is filled with lacks and limitations. The spiritual mind knows only limitless abundance. Let me read that again. The sense mind is filled with lacks and limitations, so that's feelings. The spiritual mind knows only limitless abundance, and that's God. That's our operating within that spiritual realm of God, of spirit. The truth is, okay, here it is. Our problems, challenges, and limitations are tiny, little, insignificant matters compared with immense power. We must overcome them. We have a power available to us to basically take those little things and treat them like a duck speck. Bing! They're gone. But do you want to use that power? Of course you do. That's why we practice the science of mind. The science of mind, or unity, or divine science, or Christian science. We are all given spiritual tools to create these amazing positive lives. Not negative lives, but positive lives. To be filled with joy and to understand that they're not just spiritual tools, they're survival tools. So when lives just go a little bit wonky, we know or we understand what is going on. I thank the good Lord every single day that I was brought up in the science of mind. Because in my life, I've had some crazy stuff go on. And recently, a couple of years ago, I lost my brother who was a fireman. And that has been very painful for me. But thank you, God, for science of mind, because what I understand about where life is and his spirit and all that, it goes on. We understand that life is eternal. It doesn't stop. It's not just a body. It continues on. So what I understand is that his soul continues to live. He's probably a fireman on the other side. He's probably still putting out fires. He's probably still doing that. But he was the captain of his life. He knew from the womb that he wanted to be a fireman. And that's what he did up until the day that he decided to transition out of here, which was not by choice. But that's the stuff that I love about science of mind, that gives us choice on how we can survive certain things in our lives. We are in a human condition. This is what we're living in. We are living in the human condition. So we are given spiritual tools to create not only a spiritual life, but a life that is fulfilled and filled with joy. John Lewis said, "The power of faith is transformative. It can be utilized in your own personal life to change your individual condition, and it can be used as a lifeline of spiritual strength." I believe that. Faith is transformative. When we know that when God's got our back, we know that we're okay. Yeah, sure, it's rough. Things are. But what we know is there's a constant thing. It's called God's love. And it will pick us up, and it will give us a new way of looking at things. And, I've said in the past, and some people kind of look at me sideways and go, really? There's always something positive that comes out of tragedy. And I know that some of you are saying, well, how can we look at what's going on in Europe, and how can we, all this other stuff? What are we learning from it? We're seeing a lot that's going on, and yes, it's tragic. But what I also know is that God is right there. I also know that this stuff doesn't last very long because God won't let it. And for whatever reason it has to happen, it does. And I want to say that our job as science of minders, or religious scientists, that's what we are. We're religious scientists. Is that we know that love is right there, that we send that love to wherever that stuff is going on that's negative. If enough of us do it, if we did this on a global process, oh my gosh, I can only imagine what would happen. But that's part of our responsibility, I think. I know, is to know that love is right there, right where everyone is. Phineas Quimby said, that's a word you don't hear very often, right? I found him and I went, ooh, good old Finney. Here we go. An idea accepted as truth is as good as reality. What enlists our attention long enough to produce a distinct impression has the power to affect the body. The mind is something that can be changed, therefore our lives can be changed. The range of possibilities is endless. It's true. One of the conditions, as I said, in life is that we are always a choice. What are you going to choose? And sometimes, yes, door number 3 doesn't always give us the car. But we get to choose again. And we can continue to choose until we understand that we can have the highest good or the higher conditions of life. In Buddhism, they refer to a state of nirvana. And it says, in the mental state when you are no longer driven to live by compelling desires and fears, when you have found your center of freedom and act by your choice. You are not grabbed because you have released yourself from fear and lust. When we make transformations, when we change our thoughts and we create new perspective, we are choosing a different path and we forge new triumphs. Changing deeply held beliefs can transform the trajectory of your life. But are you willing to let go of those deep-seated belief systems? Are you willing to change? It says that the starting point of man's reformation is in the mind. Oh, fancy that. How did we not know that? It is. If we shift our thinking, if we shift our perspective, we will shift the conditions of our life. But how many of you are willing to do that? I know it's safe where you are. I know things feel comfortable. Why would I want to step out the box and into something unknown? Especially if I can't put conditions on it. What would it look like if you could just step into it and say, okay, hit me. Hit me with everything you can so that I know my highest good, to know my strength, to know my power, to know the love that is within me, that has the power to do so much. There is nothing conditional when we awaken to freedom. When we are in freedom, we live in an unconditional world. So I have some challenges for you this weekend, or this week, I should say. What limitations have you created that you no longer want to participate in? There's one. You get 3 this week. How much mental coin has it cost you to be in these conditions, to live the life that you are feeling that you're limited in? How much mental coin has it cost you? And how much space has it taken up in your mind that doesn't support you? Ding, 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 ding. How much mental space do we create with conditions that don't support us and we really don't realize it? So it's time to evict. Time to evict those conditions and lead the highest good of your life. You know, conditions are like the weather. They can change. And as Gandhi said, be the change. And so it is. And so let us turn within for just a moment. Knowing love is right where we are. Knowing love sits where you are right now. It is in this love that we understand God has no conditions on our lives. No, God has no conditions of where we are. All it knows is it wants more for us, always for us. And so what we open our hearts and minds to is knowing that this beautiful essence I call God, my name is God, lights the path for us to follow, lights the path for all the highest conditions of love to enter into our lives. I know that each and every one of us is open to that, to new adventures, to wonderful, wonderful experiences, for shift, for change in a positive way. To know that we can discard whatever is not serving us, not supporting us, and feel safe. It is in this knowing of Spirit's love that I know all is good and all is well. And so I release this into God's perfect law, into the perfection of love, knowing that all is well. And I accept it as so. And so it is.